All right, let's talk about Solana. It's one of the most talked about, most controversial, and, most resilient blockchains out there. It made this massive high-stakes bet on one thing: pure, unadulterated speed. A lot of people thought it would fail. So the big question for us today is, how did that bet actually pay off? And how is it now poised to reshape the future of everything from finance to real-world infrastructure?
It really all started with this one simple but incredibly audacious question. The founder, Anatoly Yakovenko, he was this top-tier engineer over at Qualcomm, and he wasn't really driven by some grand ideology. Nope, he was driven by a pure engineering obsession. Could you build a blockchain with the raw, brutal performance of a centralized system, like the Nasdaq Stock Exchange?
And that obsession, that led directly to Solana's core thesis, its big, defining bet. See, instead of building a complex system with lots of different layers, like its rivals, Solana put all its chips on a monolithic architecture. What does that mean? It means one single, tightly integrated, and just ridiculously fast system designed for one thing and one thing only: speed. So let's really break down this foundational choice. This is part one, a bet on speed. This is where we get into the strategic decision that has defined literally everything about Solana, both the good and the bad. This slide right here, it just perfectly frames the great debate in blockchain today. Over on the left, you've got Solana's monolithic world. Everything happens on one single integrated layer. The payoff? You get extreme performance and this really cool thing called atomic composability. Just think of it like all the apps are Lego bricks that can just snap together instantly. It's a bet that computer hardware will just keep getting faster and faster. Now, on the right, you've got Ethereum's modular approach, splitting things up across different layers for more flexibility. The trade-off there? Well, you need all these complex bridges to connect everything, and that can get messy and clunky for the user.
So, how in the world does Solana actually achieve this insane speed? Okay, let's pop the hood and take a look inside the engine room. We're going to explore the key tech breakthroughs that make this whole monolithic bet even possible. The first and probably the most famous innovation is proof of history, or POH. Now, this is absolutely crucial. This is not a consensus mechanism. It's not how the network agrees on things. Think of it more like a decentralized cryptographic clock. It timestamps and orders every single transaction before the network even has to vote on them. This idea, which Yakovenko famously said came to him in a 2 coffees and a beer moment, it solves a massive bottleneck. It just slashes the time validators waste arguing about the order of events. And then you've got Sealevel. You see, most blockchains, like Ethereum's EVM, are what we call single-threaded. They process transactions one by one by one. It's like a single-lane country road. Sealevel completely changes the game. It's a multi-lane superhighway. It was built from the ground up to process thousands of transactions at the same time by taking full advantage of the multi-core processors in modern computers.
But let's be real, this speed came with a price. Solana's early days were rocky. They were marked by instability. Back in 2021 and 2022, the network buckled under the weight of its own success. You had DDoS attacks, you had NFT minting bots just overwhelming the system and causing outages. But here's the thing, these weren't failures, they were growing pains. This was the fire that forced the entire network to evolve and build a whole new level of resilience.
And here are the results of that evolution. To stop one popular app from causing a network-wide traffic jam, they introduced localized fee markets. They upgraded the whole network protocol to Quick for smarter traffic handling. But the real game changer, the big one, is FireDancer. This is a completely new second validator client built by the high-frequency trading wizards at Jump Crypto. It's designed to completely eliminate the risk of a single point of failure and, frankly, to unlock even more performance. Okay, so all of that intense, technical work, it laid the foundation for an absolute economic explosion. So for part 3, let's look at how Solana actually translated all that speed into a thriving, multi-billion-dollar DeFi economy. The secret? Well, it starts right here with this number. This is the average cost of a transaction on Solana. Let that sink in. It's not just low, it's practically nothing. And that right there is the key takeaway. This quote just nails it. The super low fee isn't just a nice little feature for users. It is a fundamental economic shift. It makes entirely new kinds of businesses and apps possible, especially the ones that need to do millions of tiny transactions. This incredibly low fee created what we can call the Solana growth flywheel. It's a user acquisition machine unlike anything else in crypto. It all starts with attraction.
People show up for the fun stuff, right? Meme coins, NFTs, things that are just super cheap and easy to play with. But through that process, they get an education. They learn how to use a wallet, how to use a decentralized exchange. And from there, it's just a tiny step to integration with the quote-unquote serious DeFi apps for lending or staking. What started out as just a bit of fun graduates into real financial utility, creating a sticky, experienced user who's here to stay.
And that utility, it goes way beyond just finance. Which brings us to what might just be Solana's ultimate competitive advantage, the DePIN frontier. DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks, and it's all about using the blockchain to build and coordinate actual, real-world infrastructure.
And in this emerging, potentially multi-trillion-dollar sector, Solana isn't just another player. It is the undisputed leader. I mean, this chart says it all. Solana has captured the lion's share, a huge majority of DePIN projects, making it the go-to platform for this whole new wave of innovation.
And we're not talking about small experiments here. We're talking about massive undertakings. You've got Helium building a global decentralized 5G network on Solana. You have Render, which created a decentralized marketplace for GPU power, a resource that's critical for AI. And then there's HiveMapper, which is basically paying drivers to build a global map that's often more up-to-date than Google's. It's incredible.
And this is the point that you really need to get. DePIN is Solana's long-term competitive moat. Why? Because for these real-world networks that are processing millions of data points from physical devices every single minute, Solana's performance isn't just a nice-to-have. It is a hard, strict requirement. No other chain today can handle that kind of scale at that kind of cost, period.
Now, all of this incredible growth in both DeFi and DePIN, it hasn't gone unnoticed. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the arrival of the big, serious institutional players.
And the proof of adoption is just undeniable at this point. You've got the payments giant Visa using Solana for stablecoin settlement, e-commerce leader Shopify has integrated Solana Pay, you have Wall Street giants like Franklin Templeton lining up to get a spot Solana ETF approved, and you even have publicly traded companies holding Sol on their balance sheets. The tide has turned. This slide just gives us a quick snapshot of the network's health. We're looking at over $10 billion locked up in the ecosystem, 2.5 million people using it every single day, and a really healthy Nakamoto coefficient of 20, which is just a fancy way of measuring decentralization. It means you need to collude with at least 20 different independent entities to compromise the network. This is no longer just some promising tech. It's a massive, functioning global economy.
So, after going through all of this, what's the final verdict? What is Solana's lasting role going to be in the future of digital assets? The thing is, the future isn't a winner-take-all battle. It never was. Instead, what we're seeing is specialization. Ethereum is cementing its role as the world's global settlement layer, kind of like a decentralized Fort Knox for high-value assets, where security is everything. Solana, on the other hand, is becoming the world's global execution layer. It's the high-performance engine for all the apps that need mind-boggling speed and scale. And that right there is the ultimate takeaway. The whole Ethereum killer narrative, it's old, it's tired, and it's wrong. Solana's story is now about being an impossibility killer. It's a platform designed to enable a future of applications that we couldn't even dream of building before, because the tech just wasn't fast enough or cheap enough. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. The last decade was completely defined by apps built for that smartphone in your pocket. So what happens when developers start building for a world where value, where anything, can move to anywhere on the planet, instantly, for a fraction of a penny? That's the world Solana is building. And the answer to that question is really just beginning to unfold.